I'm Claire Edwards, and you're listening to Authentic Leadership, a series of conversations, insights and inspirations with leaders who are real, raw and authentic. Today, I bring you a conversation filled with insight and a good dose of humour with Kim Taylor of Ultimate Communicator. From the get-go, Kim epitomises rawthenticity by sharing her leadership lessons from a personally very challenging time. And our conversation sort of weaves from assertiveness to empathy, which is the main topic of our conversation, but also to owning how we communicate and who we are as communicators in the world. Enjoy! Kim Taylor is a fellow professional speaker and coach, and our journey of speaking goes way back to Toastmasters many years ago. Kim has chosen a career of helping people to speak, but in a very special way, to speak for themselves and from their whole heart, and with authenticity, or I think she really means rawthenticity, and owning their unique communication style. And our topic of conversation today is one that goes hand in hand with speaking from the whole heart, and that's empathy. We'll be exploring how we lead ourselves and others with empathy as a foundation, and how we can develop empathy as a leadership and communication practice. So, Kim, welcome to Authentic Leadership.
Thank you, Claire. I'm excited. I'm really excited to be here. So thank you.
Yeah, I am looking forward to our conversation ahead. Now, I know that your business background was in running a thriving commercial nursery business, and that, I mean, you know, plants, not little people. What was it about that led you from this career to one of helping people, I think, become exceptional communicators? I've seen what you do, and I've seen the results that you get, and also to speak authentically.
Yeah, and it's the first thing that comes to mind, because I love this question, is that it started with me. I needed to change things about myself, or explore and uncover things that were influencing this. So if I go back to the earliest recollection of that, influence would be when I was a little girl. And I had this, have you ever heard of that quote by Mark Twain? Better to stay quiet and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt.
Oh, yes, unfortunately. Yes, I do.
Yeah. And that was how I started, was feeling that I could not speak up. I was about getting approved of. I was the good girl, and so I would be like a little girl, like a little puppy dog to please.
Yeah.
And but I also knew that it wasn't right within me. Even that knowledge as a little girl, I thought, this is something, why am I doing this? Why do I feel I need to do this? So I was, even as young as 4, 5, 6, there were little questions in my mind in my own way, asking, and I used to feel that more than ask them.
Yeah.
And so that was a big driver, and it wasn't until I married my wonderful Chris. He's a horticulturalist, and he was running he'd started and was running this commercial nursery that you referred to before. And I got involved with that, and we were running it together, doing an amazing job. And I think I lose track of time, but it's like, I think it was about 5 years or maybe 10 years. I forget now, but it doesn't matter. The point was that he got cancer and he was out of commission for 6 months.
Yeah.
And so essentially I was needing to go, you know, it was really scary. And this might sound a little bit woo-woo, but I actually went to see I was very drawn to see a psychic. And because I was just looking for answers, I was beside myself in a lot of ways. I was in unknown territory, and yet I'd been involved in the nursery for a long time, but, you know, it was the focus on me. I'm a good girl. I do as I'm told. I want to be approved of. And now I've got this team of 10 that I'm essentially looking after, and or thinking I needed to, and lead the business. So what happened was, Chris is out of commission, and there was, there was some, because of the leadership changing at the top. And I think this is a really important point in relation to our conversation, because when that leadership shifted and they saw Chris as being the kingpin because he was the main person in that regard, the dynamics changed and shifted. And then that became behavioral shift within the team, and mostly it was great. Their team fabulous. I loved working with them, loved having them. And there were one or two, there was a personality clash. Mm-hmm. And we ended up having this thing that I needed to, it was either going to get out of hand or I needed to nip it in the bud and sort it out.
And have the difficult conversation.
And that was where I found my voice to speak up and to really step into my power and be able to speak from my whole heart, to be able to communicate what I needed, as well as be able to listen to what was happening for them as well. That's what I essentially deep down knew I needed to do. And I was able to fix it, because by coming to them and going to them and saying, okay, we need to talk about this, speaking my truth about my priority is Chris. He's 6 months out of commission, and essentially if you two cannot work this out, and I'm here to support you, if you two cannot work this out, I will close the nursery down. Mm. And they knew I meant it. Mm. They really knew I meant it. And I think, and just coming back to your question, it was those situations which kind of pushed me into, I need to step up right now, that helped me to realize there's something about this communication and leadership and how we lead ourselves that it fascinated me. At the same time, I was growing as well. So it was like this, whoa, what is this thing? There's something really drawing me here. Yeah.
Wow. And good for you for taking on those challenges. And it's interesting, as I was listening to you recount that and saying, that Chris is my priority. And what I hear you speaking assertively. And I think sometimes when we misunderstand the concept and the essence of empathy, that empathy isn't always just stepping into the other person's shoes and doing whatever they want. Empathy is also being deeply true to yourself. So I'd just like to explore that a little more and ask you about what's your understanding, what's your definition of empathy, and how did you find that in that moment when you had to step up in leadership?
Yeah, I don't think I've thought about that before. It's my definition of empathy. Yes, I definitely have thought about that part, but it was, was I thinking about that at the time? My definition is, and I love this quote. What is that quote again? I'm just trying to recall. Oprah Winfrey, and she says that leadership is about empathy. Something about it's having the ability to be able to relate and connect with people for the intention or the purpose of inspiring and empowering their lives. I love that quote. Mm-hmm. I really do. It's a quote that it speaks, because when we can actually genuinely be interested in what the other person is saying, mm-hmm. holding that space to connect with them and appreciate that they have something to say. We're curious, we're wanting to inquire, and we have the compassion and to actually, and the interest to actually listen to that. That to me is what that leadership and empathy is about. And I think that's coming back to your question, because I said I hadn't thought about it. That's what I was doing in that situation with the team, was that I needed to hear where they were at, and help and acknowledge. Actually, that's the thing. I think that's that acknowledgement of, I get that this is happening for you. We've got our, things have gone topsy-turvy here. However, we need to work together. I'm listening. At the same time, I have these things. This criteria also needs to be met for the business. So it's not about you. It's not about me. It's about working together. And these are also criteria and priorities we need to consider.
Yeah.
Be aware of. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And it's interesting, if I'm looking back at the last few conversations for the podcast and the conversations to come. Now, I'll hands up, it may well be my own bias that's coming into play here, but I really want to explore 21st century leadership skills. And time and again, it's like when you decide something, when we decided that the topic was going to be empathy, it started popping up everywhere on your radar,
Yes.
or my radar, certainly. And so I think I want to just maybe get your opinion on if it's such a critical skill, it's such a critical leadership practice, and it's such a critical communication skill. Why do you think it might still be perceived as soft and fluffy, for want of a better words? How has it got that label? And you might not know, but I'm just asking for your opinion.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't got a complete answer on it. What my thoughts are from the people, the clients that I've worked with and watching, because I love to watch the way people are, their behavior, and not to stalk them, but just to, I'm curious about how they, what their body's saying and what their words are saying, or what they're not saying. So I'm watching people, and I think it's considered a soft skill because we've essentially this, it's like, perhaps it's evidence-based. A soft and fluffy skill isn't something that can be 1 and 1 equals 2.
Yeah.
We can see shift and change, but when we've got a hardcore leadership skill or strategy, we can see that 1 and 1 equals 2.
Yeah.
So I think it's being able to equate it to something. Do you also think, and it's be curious to ask you too, is like, do you think also that we need to show up in the world in a certain way? We need to be perhaps the one, if we're not recognizing it as a good skill, or we're recognizing it as a soft and fluffy skill, it's more of a, is it because of our culture saying we need to impress, or it's driven by what people are thinking and judgment of others? That would be something I would be, question.
That's the first time I've been asked a question on a podcast. you are such a brilliant coach. I think the world is waking, and I'll give a short answer. I think the world is waking up, Kim. I think that that the face of leadership is changing. So if we look back to the industrial era, when people were cogs in a machine. They weren't even treated as people. And then they got promoted to human resources. Think about this. They're people.
Yes.
They're people. And now we have, I think, in my opinion, the gift that millennials and Gen Zs are bringing us is that wholehearted way of doing business. They want to be seen, to be valued, to be appreciated. Their well-being is at the forefront of everything. So I think that leaders today, if leaders hold on to old traditional practices, or hold on to the status quo, and don't wake up to the skills of compassion, empathy, gratitude, all of those, what used to be, I think we can bin the term soft and fluffy now, then they will not bring their people with them. And if they don't bring their people with them, they lose engagement, they lose productivity, they lose profit, they lose performance. So I think it's a time of awakening. So thank you for asking me that question. Don't interview coaches. No, I love it. I absolutely love it. I love it. Thank you.
That's great.
That is not going to be edited out.
No, you've absolutely hit the nail on the head with your answer, though, because that's exactly right. It's a core truth now, and the evidence is coming through. So I love your answer.
So back to you.
So funny. Oh, that's right. It's about me today. No, I'm kidding.
So what I want to know more about is, and I'm being very opinionated here, but I know it is. I'm also being authentic. You know, I've seen some politicians stand up and speak, and I'm like you. As a coach, we need to be super interested and curious about human behavior. And when I see an incongruence between the words that they're saying and their body language, it makes me cringe. And I know that I've tweeted it before when I've seen a certain politician speak, and I'm very unkind, and I use the word empathy bypass. You know, as someone who I see in you is devoting their career and pretty much their life to helping people develop their communication skills. Can empathy really be learned rather than taught? Can people learn to develop their empathy skills?
Yes, that is a definite yes. When the teams that I've worked with, clients that I've worked with, they can come in with like a certain way, and then when the awareness comes, they're like, "Oh, that's the difference," and they start applying it in their situations in their life, personally and professionally. They start to see the shift. So yes, it can. But truly what it needs to come back to is we need to want to change.
Yeah.
That is a key thing. We need to be interested in doing something about that. Have something that's a disconnect. For example, one conversation I just had just last week with this amazing woman who's in corporate. And she was saying she's feeling this disconnect when she's speaking with her team, and in her board meetings, and she's getting feedback that she's not empathic enough. Really interesting. So she's going like, "What's going on?" And after our conversation, she's starting to see like, it's about taking that genuine interest in them. She was interested, but it was more about her agenda. But when she took that really deep interest in them, inquiry, compassion, and started to realize there were some key things here, yes, we can, because it starts with that. And I also think the statistics are actually supporting this too. And I think that's the evidence. Empathy is, when the leaders, the studies that are being, like Qualtrics, I think was one study that's been done just recently, saying, the increase in stress, the increase in anxiety, emotional exhaustion in these uncertain times in our current day, it's on the rise. And what they're showing now is that when that empathy is present, when the empathy is coming from that leader, they're feeling that, they're getting that from their leader, and the leaders are practicing it. Their team is sleeping better, they're more productive, they're innovative, so they're able to get their work done, and they're happier, which has also got that flow-on effect into their personal lives as well. And the studies are saying that at least 86% people are really appreciating that empathy in their leader, that they feel listened to. And it's contagious because it's that roll-on effect of like positive empathy creates more positive empathy.
Wow. So what is it that these leaders are doing or not doing, or saying or not saying? What is it that's triggering or facilitating these improvements in behavior and practice for their people?
The trick is coming because and this is from my own experience of what I'm noticing and the conversations I'm having, is that they're noticing that there's a disconnect.
Yeah.
And they're not reaching people. It's like it's not working anymore,
So
or
they
it's not
have to be
working.
self-aware first.
Self-aware first.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
something. Yeah, there does need to start with being genuinely. I think there's sort of three key things. You've genuinely got to be caring about that. You've got to want it.
Yeah.
You've got to be aware of it, that something's not working, and then and then it's that's and I think that's also we've got to understand ourselves first. So I think those are the key things. It's a self-acceptance, like of who we are, but then it's like this internal, like something's not quite right, inquiry. And that, to me, when they're open, when they start to inquire about that, there's a disconnect, and why is that, and they start, then the answers start to come through around, okay, I need to do something different. It starts there. That's what I don't know if I've answered the question, but
Yeah, I can
starts
just,
there.
and I can imagine getting when you get a new client who has that awareness that it's such an exciting opportunity for you to open up that world to them about the difference that empathy can make.
Yes. Well, it's the contrast. What's working? What's that wonderful tool in neurolinguistic programming, the tote?
Yeah,
What's happening currently? How do you want it to be? And then testing that, and then, okay, oh, there's the gap, there's the difference. Well, what could we do differently? And it's when we can open up that possibility of where those gaps are, of what they're doing now and what they could be, or what's worked in the past, and then put it into practice. Wow, that's where they get
yeah,
the awareness. But it's like, I also think it's also about for us to create the shift. It's for ourselves. It's like having your wonderful podcast, having these conversations is bringing that awareness. It's like we're leading by example ourselves, and then it starts to create that shift and awareness for others as well.
thank you. And just to sort of pop to the other side of the continuum, I'm wondering if there's such a thing as being too empathic, where you're maybe taking on the pain and challenges of your people. I think, particularly it's been so difficult the last 18 months where everybody's working remotely. And as a leader, if you're, well, I don't know if you can be too empathic, but if you were too empathic, that it doesn't serve you. So is there such a thing as being too empathic?
I think if we don't have self-awareness, this is again what I have noticed. If we haven't got self-awareness, then we can go into rescue. We can go into trying to fix it. But
Yeah,
when there's the difference is that with the effective empathy is about standing in our client's shoes, standing in our team's shoe, the person that we're speaking to, and listening, and then how best can I serve you? And then I find if I ask that question, this is how I do it, is that, okay, I'm standing in your shoes, how best can I serve you?
yeah,
And it's from that, because it's about that walking beside, it's helping us find the answers. If I get stuck in their story, then I just have this awareness now that I cannot afford to do that. I can be compassionate, I can listen, but if I go down that spiral of the story, it's not helping anyone.
yeah.
So my intention always is to walk beside them, to support them, but it's a self-responsibility as well for them to uncover what we need. I'm going back to the nursery, for example, that empathy when we're, as I really started to step up, with Chris being out of action for a number of months, was that if any of the team came to me with I think we've got this challenge happening, we've got this problem, how do we fix it? It was like, well, what are the solutions you've thought of as well? And And so that was that self-responsibility. So yes, I think we can be too empathic. At the same time, with awareness, if we ask that question, how can I serve you? Then we can, it just changes the shift in mental dynamics. Yeah.
And it is also empowering people as well.
Yes.
It's not just I'm here for you, but it's as you say, it's when you balance it with that accountability, and that's when you get the best results. I want
Exactly.
to move on a little bit to I've been privy to a journey that you've been on for a while now, but certainly has been concentrated over the last 12 months. And that is that you've been doing a deep dive into communication preferences, styles, and archetypes. You've been doing a deep dive into communication archetypes. And I love this because so often so many of us have been on courses where they say, okay, well, if this is what you want, if this is the result that you want to achieve, this is how you need to change. This is what you need to do, or you need to be like me, or this is, and it drives me nuts. And it's like, are we going to spend the rest of our lives studying people who are brilliant communicators and trying to be like them? Surely there must be a way to be an exceptional communicator and still be ourselves. And this is what I love about what you do. So I'd love you to share with our listeners. Can you take us on take us on a little journey, or tell us as much as you want, I don't care, about the ultimate communicator archetypes.
Hey, that's beautiful. Oh, that's exciting. Thank you for that. It's you're so right though. I just want to say, acknowledge for what you're saying about the feeling like you've got to be like others. Others say this is the way to do it. No, it's about doing Facebook Lives. It's about being on the big stage. In actual fact, that may not suit us. And doing what others have said and it works for them, brilliant. It may not work for you, or it may not feel aligned and congruent for you. So you're spot on. I hear that so often. And that was what actually led me, and especially with 2020 and with COVID and stuff, what was going on there was like an opportunity to, so many people I've worked with are going like, I'm feeling this disconnect. I'm feeling like it's not me. I want to be more real. I want to be more authentic in my communication. At the same time, I want to be able to reach them. I want to be able to articulate my message. And so this thing of disconnect that people were feeling, like their communication wasn't working or their public speaking wasn't working, led me to go, I wonder. And you know how you see these different archetypes in other things? You see personality types, money archetypes. And I thought, I wonder if there's something in communication. Why wouldn't there be some themes or some patterns in communication that could help us to identify with who we truly are, our natural style, what feels aligned for us? And it will empower us. And so, with the clients that I've worked with, the group trainings that I do, and all the study, I studied Carolyn Mace's work, Elizabeth Puttick's work, and just looked at these patterns. There are actually 8 patterns that emerged, and this is what these ultimate communicator archetypes are that you said. So, thank you. Evolved. And it's incredible. I get really excited about this because when someone recognizes, oh, that's me. So, for example, when you've got the inspirer, just as you said, to tease.
Oh, please, yeah, no, do give us some examples. That'd be great.
Okay. The inspirer. When I think of the inspirer, I think of Jacinda Ardern. Now, I'm not thinking of the politics side. Whether you agree or you don't agree with her politics is not in this conversation. What it is, it's about, she exudes empathy. She exudes this humbleness, this quiet messenger who goes out, she has connection, speaks to one, but in fact actually speaks to the whole world or global, because she connects with one which then has this ripple. Speak to one, speak to all. She's an inspirer. Look at Christchurch and the way she handled that in the different situations. So comes in from more of a one-on-one connection with someone, but reaches so many more. Another example, which would be, and not one of the 8 is better than the other. This is about just recognizing that, hey, this is who I am. That self-acceptance of like, wow, I recognize that it's like a private contract with ourselves that we accept. Do you like that? I mean, it's like we're so at peace with ourselves. It's like, and we own it and we go, this is who I am. And you think of Jacinda, she owns that.
Yeah.
And she's been criticized for being too empathetic. In actual fact, but that's her leadership style. That is the way she leads people. Then we think of the other, another archetype would be the empress or the emperor. And they're like larger than life, or the luminary example. They love being in the spotlight. They love being all eyes on them. The larger number of people they can reach, they light up. They're excited. They're in their limelight. They love it. And I think of someone there would be, the first one that comes to mind is Tony Robbins.
Oh, yeah.
Larger than life and just loves, 5,000, 6,000 people. That's his authenticity of communication and reaching people. And he still connects one-on-one. But if he tries to be Jacinda Ardern and Jacinda Ardern tries to be him, there's going to be a mismatch. It's not going to work.
I'm just, my brain's doing the visual and it's not working.
Exactly. So when we can recognize that, and this is what they're just 2 or 3 examples I've shared just briefly. When we recognize who we are and we recognize our strengths as leaders, and our strengths in our communication, the way we do that to be able to lead effectively. And we also recognize what can block us, the barriers that can come up. And then we can see, this is what I could do. And we explore that. And this is where I help clients to do that, explore what that is for them so they can really, truly own it. That's exciting, seeing the results. Wow.
And if I may share, because I've done the profile with you, and so much made sense in retrospect from my own management and leadership career. And I came out as a sort of a battle between the campaigner and the visionary. And when I look back and reflect, I see that how much that played a part in my leadership style. And that I was trying to be a bit of a Pied Piper, and I saw the vision. I was on a mission, and quite often I was trying to take the people with me, thinking that they saw what I could see, and they had the same level of passion that I had, and obviously I did learn and realize that wasn't the way to go. I'm much better to try and be a shepherd than a Pied Piper. But it was that process of revealing, I suppose, what my communication style is reflected in my values, in why I do what I do, in so much, and it doesn't mean to say that I'm just going to own that and I'm not going to change anything. What it did was it revealed the blind spots to me so that I wanted to change, so that I wanted to be able to adapt how I was speaking to different audiences. And I think that for me was such a key point, that we're saying, yes, own your communication style and find a way to, do a Jacinda. To one is to all. I can't remember exactly how the way you said it, but that certainly was it was a great revelation for me. So I thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, it was exciting doing it with you, because what I love about you, Claire, is that when you like you're so open and curious and you want to know and you want to grow. And so it's like you take it on board and go, that's it. And you start putting the pieces together and then you act on it and then you make it happen. It's like, I love that about you. So, and it does, you see the results, don't you? But you've got to want to do it to begin with. And because it's like the fly against the window, isn't it? You know, the biz bump. If we don't, in the flight, the window might be open right beside it, but if we keep doing the same thing, we give ourselves a headache.
I'm sorry. I've got this happening at the moment. I don't know if the microphone's picking it up, but I closed the windows because we were doing the podcast, and I've got a fly go biz bump. Oh my goodness! So okay, so this is it's a profiling tool. If people are listening who want to do a profile, where do they go?
Oh, great. Okay, fantastic. Well, it is on my website and ultimatecommunicator.com.au, and there's I can give you the link so it can go into here if you would like it.
Fabulous. And, I'll put it in the show notes.
Oh, beautiful. And they can actually do the profile to identify what their top 3 archetypes are. And then so it only takes like, less than 10 minutes. So normally it's about 8 minutes to do. And it's quickly just going with the best answer that feels right or you think is right for you. And then when you come up, you get an instant result. And then what I am doing is to offer everyone who does that it is an obligation free, and you can have a 20-minute conversation with me so that I can go into, because I'll get the results of what you've done. I can look at how you've answered those questions and be able to help you identify and understand more about your strengths, where those challenges could be showing up, and we have a conversation, and then to help you see what it is, where those gaps are, so that you can start to make some shifts and changes. And I absolutely love doing this with people because I get excited seeing how, well, first hearing the result, like you were so excited about hearing yours, but also seeing how, you know, the ahas, the penny drops. It's like, oh yes, of course. So I love doing that with people to be able to help them see.
That's really generous, Kim. And I know from the feedback from many of your clients, it's not just about, obviously, you know, how they communicate from a work-based perspective, but people are getting great results with their kids, with their partners.
Yes.
With friends and what have you. It's a real sort of awakening. What a fabulous conversation. I'm just thinking about how you like to be communicated to. I'll obviously put your website on the show notes as well. Would you prefer, are you a Facebook, Insta, or LinkedIn aficionado?
All of those work well. If LinkedIn is fantastic, and yes, but all 3 work very well. I'm on all of those platforms.
Fabulous.
So it's great. You know, just to share with you, like I know often when I'm working with someone, they say to me, just to give you an example of how, you know, when you know yourself so well, how different it makes it. Networking can be such a big thing when people go into networking, and sometimes you can feel that people can feel like out of alignment with that. But when you actually know your communication style and you know your natural way of communication, and you can recognize who you're speaking to out of all the 8 archetypes, in that situation, there's another situation where it can really feel like this becomes an interesting, fun exercise to do, rather than thinking, oh, I've got to go to that networking meeting tonight. And I just thought I'd just share just that how different people feel, even in networking, when, you know, the difference just plays out in so many. Oh, and couples, when you have got your partner at home, it's like often I hear, oh, you know what? I reckon my partner's a campaigner. That makes sense because I'm an empire and they're a campaigner. So it's this kind of thing. It's that awareness. So, you know, if for anyone that wants to do this, honestly, you will get so much insight into who you are, but then what it is that you can be doing to, make things happen, create things differently.
Wonderful.
And that's going to impact, wherever you are, whether you're self-employed, whether you're working with teams. Yeah, it's you showing up as a leader. And in a way, well, not in a way, it's true. Because we're showing that empathy in ourselves and recognizing who we are, we accept who we are, then in that space to be able to be there for others. Think of Oprah, think of the Dalai Lama, Richard Branson. They really they lead with empathy and they own who they are. I just felt to say that, so I hope that was okay.
And think of Kim Taylor. You do lead with empathy as well. You walk your talk, Kim, which is why you're on Authentic Leadership. Thank you so much. I've really, really enjoyed this conversation. I'll put all the information on the show notes. Go well, stay safe, and thank you again.
Thank you so much, Claire. It's been an absolute pleasure and honour to be on your show. So fantastic. I love your work. I love what you do. So yeah, beautiful.
Bye.
Bye, Claire. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening, and we hope that this conversation provided some food for thought. If you enjoyed the podcast, please head over to Apple Tunes or Google Podcasts and give us a positive rating and write a short review. This is the most effective way for us to get the key messages around 21st century leadership out to the community. Go well and stay safe.